everybody. Today I wanted to talk about the bare necessities that I recommend that you get when you're pregnant if you plan on breastfeeding. So there are so many options out there for the breastfeeding mama or the breastfeeding mama to pick from, and it can be incredibly overwhelming to discern what is necessary, what is nice to have, and what you're just not even going to need at all. So I am going to go ahead and go through the few things that I think are very necessary to have when you're very first starting out to give you some comfort and to make it as easy as possible for you to be able to breastfeed. Let's get started. The first thing that I recommend is actually a breastfeeding pillow. I don't know if I would have kept breastfeeding if it wouldn't have been for that pillow. I used it every single time that I fed that baby until he was about 4.5 months old. And then at that point, he was old enough that I could kind of like put my leg up like this, and then he had good enough head control that for the most part we could just easily breastfeed without it. I maybe tried once or twice to not use it when we were out and about, and like I could do it in a pinch, but it was exhausting. There was just no way that I was gonna do that in the middle of the night. It was just way too much. I got I can never say this, okay. So I got the My Breast Friend pillow, and I highly recommend it. I got the deluxe version. I think they're basically the same thing, but there was like a little extra side on it. It is like $50, which sounds like a lot for a pillow, but let me tell you, it is designed very well. It's very flat, and so it gives a surface for your baby to lay on when they're a newborn. They are so tiny, they can't support their head at all. It's so nice to have an area to just lay the baby down. The pillow also clips in the back, which I really liked too to help make it more sturdy. I had used the other type of breastfeeding pillow before, the boppy, at my sister's house whenever she had babies, and I would just be like bottle feeding them. And even to bottle feed, I felt like it was not exactly good for my shape. It would come out, and so it'd be like too far away from my body. I could never get it to stay on right. So I did like that My Breast Friend I did like that the My Breast Friend clipped in the back for security. It was kind of annoying in the middle of the night because it was kind of a loud sound. So I was always scared that like unclipping it was gonna wake up the baby. So there was that, but it kept everything nice and stable. I would recommend though, everybody pretty much is gonna give you baby blankets, especially those ones, the like receiving type blankets that are kind of small. Use some of those, like roll them up and put them underneath baby's head on the side you're feeding, and just to give you a little bit of extra support. It could just be like the shape of my body. I'm very short, so I'm not really sure. But for me, I did feel like when he was very small that it was nice to have a little bit of something extra there. Otherwise, the pillow was a little bit too low, and I would sometimes find myself kind of like leaning over instead of like staying up and bringing baby to me. I was going to baby, and so just rolling up one of those little receiving blankets and popping it under his head really helped to prevent that. And it was a bonus because it was something that you could use as a burp cloth. Next, you are going to need some pads to put in your bra because you are going to leak. How much you leak, how often you leak, etc. is going to depend on the person, but you are going to leak at some point. It's just part of being a new mom, and your supply has not yet balanced. And so you put these little sticky things, you just pull the thing off and you stick it onto the bra. So there's like a pad that's next to the nipple so that when milk leaks out, it soaks it up, and they're amazing. Depending on you, you may end up needing to put it on like the opposite side when you're feeding, because you may find that you leak a lot when you're feeding, or you may find that you leak a lot in the middle of the night, or you just may want to wear them constantly because you're just leaking. I wore them constantly for a while. a few months, maybe. I don't know. Definitely by the time I went back to work at 3 months, I was not wearing them constantly anymore, but I was still wearing them most nights because I would still leak some at that point. I got the Lancino brand. I thought they were great. I did attempt to use some reusable ones because I'm frugal a little bit. I like to save money if I can, and also I want to save the planet. I don't want to just be dumping all these things out. But unfortunately for me, I felt like they were hard to stay in place, and actually, ouch, but they kind of sometimes, like if the milk dried on them, would pull when I took them off, and that was just a no-go. Okay, and on that note, you're gonna want to get nursing bras. So I hate bras. Probably one of the things that I was looking forward to the least about postpartum was having to wear a bra constantly, and it did suck, but it wasn't as bad as I thought it was gonna be. Anyway, the bras that I liked the most were the Auden brand from Target. So if you have a similar body type to me, that may be ones that you want to try. They were quite cheap. They're very comfortable for sleeping, and they're very easy like for access to get out for the baby. So I really enjoyed those, and I'm actually still wearing those. He is still nursing, so I'm not just completely wearing it without the need for it, but they're comfortable enough that I can wear them in everyday life and not really notice them. I will also mention that I got a pumping bra from Kindred Bravely. I actually got the one that sold at Target, so I think it may be a little bit different than the regular one because it was a little bit cheaper, but I'll link it for you guys. I really liked that one. It was really bulky, but I wore that to work for the first probably 2 to 3 months of pumping. It also helped make me feel a little bit less nervous about the potential of leaking because there are some pads that are built into it. So it does feel bulky, but it kind of made me feel more comfortable out in public. Now, if you're not going back to work or you're not planning on pumping, then you don't need that, but you do need the nursing bras. Moving on, another thing that I recommend is nipple cream. Now, I was pretty lucky and I didn't have to use it for very long, but it was really needed in the first few days. I was vigilant about putting on that cream every single time I fed him. Even in the hospital when I got like absolutely no sleep, I was putting that stuff on to try to make sure that I didn't get sores or anything like that. And honestly, it worked quite well. I got the Earth Mama one just because it had some good reviews and I had seen some people that got it, and it worked just fine for me. I barely used any of it, so I'm just gonna save it for if we have another one to use. But even though I didn't use a lot of it, I would still recommend going ahead and getting it because it really did make a difference. Something else that I would recommend with some caveats is the Haka Ladybug. So one thing that happens to a lot of people when you are feeding, when you very first are postpartum, is the other side will leak, because unless you have twins, you're only feeding on one side at a time, and it can leak a lot. Like a lot can come out, like over an ounce, and that's a really good way to save a little bit of extra milk just in case you're not positive if baby's still hungry, if they're getting anything out, or you want someone else to feed the baby. So the Haka Ladybug can be a really good option for this. And the main reason is because it's mostly a catcher. It does have very light suction, so you need to be a little careful about that, but it's not nearly as much suction as the other Haka, or I believe there's, I can't remember which brand it is that also makes one, but if I remember, I'll put it down below. But specifically the Ladybug, the one that is a circle and it actually looks like a ladybug, like it has design on it. That one barely has any suction, and so it's not really going to contribute much to oversupply. You can sometimes put that in your bra and let it catch all of the excess, and you potentially, I would get on good days about like an ounce for each feeding, which truly will add up over time, especially in the early days when the baby is not really eating all that much at once. Now, don't feel pressured to do this if you're just barely hanging on. It's too much work to just nurse the baby. Trust me, I really understand that. So don't feel like you have to do it. I would see all these influencers talking about all the milk they got from their Haka and blah, blah, blah. And it was too much for me. Sometimes I was worried that I was gonna spill the milk trying to get the baby. And so I did do it. And I did find it very helpful when I did it, but I didn't do it every single time, and I didn't even do it every single day because that was too much. I would usually do it sometime mid-morning, afternoon, when I felt like I had more energy, and it wasn't like such a chore to do it. Also, be aware that, like I was saying, if you get the other type of Haka or any type of pump that you don't actually have to pump, but it suctions on, that's technically still a pump, and it potentially could contribute to oversupply. So I've seen plenty of people who did it, so it's not necessarily a bad thing. Like if you're watching this video and you have already been doing that and you're not having any problems, that's probably completely fine. But just be aware that if you do start using it on one side while you are nursing, it's gonna signal to your body that you need that milk, because it's not just catching the leak, it's actually physically sucking out more. And so that is a good way to end up getting an oversupply, which sounds like a good thing, but it actually can be a bad thing, because then if you stop using that, you have a higher chance of getting mastitis. So it may be something that if you want to do it, great, but if you start to get mastitis, you may have to cut back on that, because that may be one of the factors in that. Okay, and if you're going to use any kind of pump, whether that's the Ladybug, like a true suction on one, a manual pump, or one of like the big Spectra ones or something like that, you are going to want to get some milk bags. I recommend that you just get a few, like the smallest one that you can purchase, because you may not end up needing to freeze any, but it is nice to be able to. You really don't want to have to go to the store to grab them. So just get the smallest size that you can. I got the Lancino ones and they worked pretty well for me. I had one leak one time, but I never tried any other ones. So I don't know, that could have happened with any of the other ones. Honestly, they're pretty good. But there's lots of different brands. Some people can get some free for their insurance, so if you're able to do that, absolutely do that. Just try the ones they give you first before you try to get some other ones. But like I said, I don't know if they make them in less than like 50, but if they do, get that. Just get the smallest one, and if you use the Haka, you can either go ahead and store it in the fridge, or you can just go ahead and make yourself a small little freezer stash. Speaking about freezer stashes, you don't need one. However, there is one instance in which you kind of do, and that is if you are planning on returning to work. If you are going to return to work at any point when the baby is only on milk, or really just on milk in general, you will need a day's worth, like 10 hours, 8 to 12 hours, however long your baby's going to be at daycare. You will need that much milk in your freezer to use for that first day of daycare. Either that or formula. If the baby has taken formula before and you know that they'll take it, then don't even worry about that. You have way more stuff to worry about trying to go back to work than to worry about making a freezer stash. There's just no sense in that. But if your baby hasn't taken formula before, or you are passionate about making sure that your baby just has breast milk, then you're gonna wanna focus on getting probably about 12 ounces, give or take, depending on your baby and how long they're gonna be at daycare, saved up in a freezer stash. And like I said, that can be as simple as trying to use that Haka Ladybug once every few days. If you're going back to work at 12 weeks postpartum, you could just do that like once a week, and that would be enough to get you enough milk for that very first day. And then after that, you don't have to worry about it, because you'll make it when you're at work for the next day. But you do need a very, very small, but still a freezer stash if you're going to be going back to work. Now, you may need a fridge stash or a small freezer stash if someone else is going to be routinely feeding your baby. The one bad thing about breastfeeding that I didn't realize, and honestly most people around me didn't realize until I was doing it, is you don't get a break. One thing that we would do is I would sometimes have his dad feed him at like 4 a.m. For a long time, he would wake up at like 1 a.m., 4 a.m., 1 a.m., 4 a.m. And over time that gets difficult, and so sometimes I would have him feed the baby at the 4 a.m. shift so I could get a little bit of extra sleep. But one thing to know is that doesn't necessarily mean that you get to sleep until the next time the baby wakes up. So usually then the baby wouldn't want milk again until like 7 or 8. First off, if I were to do that every single day for weeks, my body is going to think that the baby doesn't eat at 4 a.m. So it's going to stop making milk at 4 a.m., which means that dad isn't going to have anything to feed the baby unless you use formula, which again is a perfectly fine option, but you just need to be aware that that's eventually what is going to happen if dad takes a feeding or anyone takes a specific feeding. Your body is just going to stop making milk at that point. The other caveat is even if you don't really mind that scenario happening, your body may not let you sleep. And this is why, even when we did this, I would still wake up at like 5 or 5:30 and I would go pump the milk that he was then gonna use for like the next day if he was gonna do that. That is because your body wants that milk to come out. Even if they're not used to the baby eating at 4 a.m., your body may just, here's milk. And so you will wake up because you're so full of milk, and it will be painful, and so you'll have to get it out. And it is possible that it would be so engorged that you'll have a difficult time getting it out. So you have to be very, very careful about going too long without removing milk in the early days of postpartum. And depending on you and your supply, it also potentially could cause issues with supply too. You want to remove milk as frequently as possible, even throughout the night. Now, if you are planning on someone else routinely feeding the baby, like one feeding a day, one feeding every other day, anything like that, I would recommend getting a regular pump. If you live in the US, then your insurance will cover one. It may not be exactly the one you want. You may have to pay like a copay for certain upgrades, but they will cover one. Even if you don't live in the United States and so you're not able to get one covered, I would still recommend getting one because it's very much worth it. Again, if you're going to be pumping at any point. If you're not going back to work and if you don't foresee yourself having somebody else feed the baby on a regular basis, then don't worry about it. Don't stress yourself out about it. I went ahead and I got the Spectra. I got the blue one. I did have to pay $25 extra to get that one, but I'm very glad that I did because I did not have to be plugged into the wall. It would have been really nice to pay for like the portable ones, like the ones that go directly into your bra, wearables, because that is a little bit easier to deal with. But I knew, well, I ended up having a hand-me-down set of those, but I did know that they make some cheap ones that are wearables that are actually pretty good. But I don't know if they make any of the bigger ones cheaply. Pretty sure it's like Spectra. There's either Medela, I'm not sure how to say it, but all those bigger ones, they're expensive. So I wanted to go ahead and use my insurance for that. And then if I felt like I was actually using it a lot and I would need a wearable, then I was planning on purchasing it myself. And then last but not least, if you don't already have a really, really big water bottle, go ahead and buy one now because you're gonna need it. I didn't have like a breastfeeding cart, anything like that. I didn't think it was necessary, but I drank some water. I would wake up in the middle of the night and feed this baby, and I felt like I was dying of thirst in the middle of the desert, and I would just drink so much water. If you're not already a water fiend and you don't drink a lot of water, invest in a big one because you don't want to be refilling a little one over and over again. I'm laughing, but it's true, like definitely do that. Okay, well, I hope that you guys enjoyed these tips. I know it still sounds like a lot, but trust me, pretty much all of that was needed. I tried to at first be kind of minimal, and then some things I just ended up buying. Like I didn't get the pumping bra for a really long time. And then I was like, why didn't I just get it? Because like sitting here holding them was like misery. It was so stupid. I should have just got it in the first place. So those are the things that I absolutely definitely liked and used. And even if breastfeeding wouldn't have worked out for us, I would have felt happy that I got them and I gave it my best to go. Please reach out if you have any questions. So leave a question in the comment if you're currently either like pregnant or about to start breastfeeding, or you're new at breastfeeding and you want to know from somebody who's done it before. Or if you have some other comments, like anything else that you use that you thought was just a lifesaver when you first started breastfeeding, anything that I forgot, leave a comment and let me know, because I'm sure other people who find this video would be happy to hear about that. Okay, well anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.